Yeah. Well, we're going to get started. It is 9 o'clock and we're all on time here. I want to thank our sponsors, the Bavarian Bakery and Deli and Tres Sorrel Dulce Ice Cream and Putt Golf. And I'd like to introduce Jon Bell, and he is going to go over some scams in small businesses.
Thank you, Cindy. I appreciate it. And thanks also to the sponsors and for everybody for being here. This is a topic that I love to talk about. I don't love that it happens, but the things that are going on in the fraud and scam space are amazing. And I love to do everything I can to make sure that I pass on the information that I've gotten through my career. So I was at Better Business Bureau for 15 years. I'm the co-chair of the Delaware Fraud Working Group. I'm the vice chair of the Delaware Association of Bank Security, also a volunteer for AARP. Speaking at a panel tomorrow at the Philadelphia Federal Reserve Bank on elder scams. But the common thread in my passion for this is that we all have a target on our back. We are, as a society, being victimized. I think every one of us knows somebody personally or professionally who has been targeted and probably victimized by some sort of a scam. And through with the support of the Central Delaware Chamber, I wanted to focus today on the scams that are targeting businesses, specifically small businesses. And the stories blow my mind. There was a nonprofit and the HR manager got a phone call from their managed services company, right? This is their Diamond Technologies or their My Sherpa. Caller ID pops up. The woman answers the phone and they're like, "Hey, Jen, this is your IT company. We think that your email's been compromised. We need to go ahead and do a check." She says, "Oh, sure." They said, "We're going to send you an email. We need you to log in real quick so we can go ahead and see if somebody is using your login to get into the system." She's like, "Yeah." They're like, "Stay on the phone with me here. Let's see." She gets the email. She goes ahead. She enters her information. The guy on the phone says, "Oh, it's not your login. Yours isn't the problem." All right, well, we'll get back to the drawing board. But hey, look, we're all set here. Don't even worry about it. Just probably don't even need to tell anybody we even called you this morning. So everything is great. You have a nice day. And of course, it was a scammer. How did the scammer know her name and who she was in the organization? This is their website. How did they know the managed
Mhm.
services company? They put a testimonial up for them. And so the scammers took the information, used it, spoofed the phone number, called her, knew her name and her title. Once they got access to her email, they sent emails to all the employees. Remember, she was the HR person saying, "Hey, I'm so sorry. We need you all to click this form to update your direct deposit information." And they entered back with their bank accounts. That's how it's happening. And it's happening really, really effectively. We had a guy who works at a karate dojo, owns it up in Newark. He got a call. It was, I guess, about last year. Might have been 2 years. Sometimes time gets a little bit squeegee for me, but it was this time of year is the important part because it starts to get dark pretty early. He gets a call 5:50 at night, right? He's got a 6 o'clock class, 7 o'clock class, 8 o'clock class in his dojo. 5:50 gets a call, caller ID, Delmarva Power. He goes ahead and answers it and he says, "What's going on?" The guy says, "Well, I'm a lineman. Yeah, I work with, Exelon, Delmarva Power. I got a work order in hand to cut your power because you didn't pay your $322 bill. Look, buddy, it's not even my job, but you just want to pay the bill because like otherwise I got to cut your power right now." The owner's like, "I didn't know I paid that bill." Rah, 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 rah. The guy's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. It's again, take it up with take it up with my boss. I'm just a lineman. I've just got the work order, but I can put the payment in if you want me to. You can sort it out tomorrow." Business owner gives him his credit card, says, "All right, go ahead and charge." Rah, 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 rah. I mean, in the business owner's mind, it's sense of urgency, right? He's got a 6 o'clock class, 7 o'clock class, 8 o'clock class. Kind of hard to do karate in the dark, unless you're really good at it. These things are happening up and down the state. They're happening regionally, and where they're getting at businesses overwhelmingly is younger employees and also through some really sophisticated social engineering. Social engineering is just a fancy way of saying they're tricking you, right? Why hack your firewall when I can just trick you into giving me your password? Um, HVAC company guy was sitting in his truck, was right at the Middletown, the Wawa right off Route 1. He's sitting there. It's a truck you guys would all recognize driving up and down the state. He's sitting there at the Wawa getting his cup of coffee, waiting to be dispatched. He gets a message on his phone. It looks like an Amazon order was placed, and it says, "Hey, this is your confirmation." He's like, "I didn't place that order." It says, "Hey, if you didn't place this order, give us a call and dispute it." He clicks the number, calls him up. He's fighting mad. He says, "I didn't make this bleepy bleep order." The scammer on the other end of the phone is like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, buddy. I mean, I know that I work at Amazon, but how do I know that you're really Dan, our customer, I need you to verify your identity. I'll send you an email. I need you to give us your password to log into the account. That's insane to me. These guys are turning the tables, and they're using the fact that we know that there's a lot of scams against us by telling us, oh, there's a lot of scams out there. But the things that are happening to business, I think, are preventable. And that's why I love presentations like this, because there are tools that people can learn about that are going to help people understand not a specific scam, right? I mean, there's a new scam every day of the week, right? But it's really about a paradigm shift. And I'm not here to talk to you about cybersecurity, right? I'm not here to talk about locking down your ports and switches or air gapping your backups and all the technical stuff, right? That's good. I definitely think you need to do those things as well. But for most small businesses, it really just starts with what I consider cyber awareness, understanding where the chinks in the armor are, the things that are happening most often, especially here in Delaware, and the things that are going to help you to be able to educate yourself, your team, your employees, your friends, your family. Again, we're all sort of in the crosshairs for this, but why businesses, right? Before I go any farther, I always like to make sure people take a moment to think about this, because businesses are a huge opportunity for scammers. I mean, they think about this for your own businesses or businesses that you've known or worked for, or just people that in your life. Every business has customer records, right? Maybe they got a CRM, maybe they've got an Excel file, maybe they've got some sort of way that they track all the people that are their customers. So there's that data. That's great news. They all have employees, right? So they've got information on that W-2 or 1099s. That could be socials, that could be bank accounts for direct deposit. It could be all sorts of delicious and delightful personal information, now for customers, now for employees. But also businesses send payments to people, right? Like they send payments to vendors. They are vendors for other businesses. And so money in, money out is kind of normal for them, right? That's just what they do. Some of them have trade secrets. I don't know. Maybe some of you have trade secrets. I don't know if you do or don't, but some businesses do, right? They've got proprietary information that makes for a tantalizing target to be able to get and then extort a business for money once you get a hold of it. And this is the sad truth. Businesses, especially small businesses, have inconsistent protections, right? They can't really afford a service interruption. And so they are more prone to pay, right? They're more vulnerable because they're in a whirlwind, right? They're a smaller organization, probably doesn't have a dedicated IT person. Maybe they outsource it to somebody. Maybe they have their cousin or their brother do it. Depends on the organization. But these are the things that make businesses really appealing to scammers, because you hack a person, you get that person's information. But if you hack a business, and I say hack again, they're not doing it by beating down your firewall anymore. They're doing it by tricking people. So I want to show you and talk about some of the ways that they're doing it for businesses, starting some of these kind of weave together, right? These are the big ones that I want to talk about. But what you're going to see is that it's a gray area, because some of the scams like phishing doesn't just lead to ransomware. Phishing leads to any of this other stuff. Imposter scams you'll see crop up in all the different ways that phishing works. But this happens locally. I mean, this was just last year. I don't know if you guys remember the big story where the Delaware libraries got hit with ransomware, shut down everything at all the libraries statewide. City of Baltimore had it happen to them, right? I mean, there are so many organizations that have been targeted by ransomware. And ransomware looks like this. In case you aren't familiar with it, it's basically malware that you or your employees download by accident, right? You click on or run a file, you accidentally install something when you thought you were installing something else. You end up, hey, it's Jay Davis. Hey, Jay. You end up downloading something that encrypts your computer, and you lose everything. And I tell you what, man, I don't know. I've worked with a lot of victims, and when you see a business owner who realizes that they got nothing, they can't access their email, they can't access their contacts, they can't access, their schedule, let alone their billing and their accounts receivable. Like, it's terrifying. And when this thing pops up, the feeling in your gut when you realize that this just happened, oh my God, it's a horrifying situation to be in. But what's leading to it is the effectiveness of it, right? Scammers do this because it works. Because what they do is they say, well, you can recover your files quickly and easily. Don't worry. I'll give it all back to you. You just need to pay me. That's the ransom part of ransomware. But then it's a triple threat because they will lean on you with pressure. They will say, hey, if you don't pay us, I'm going to not only broadcast to everybody that your security sucks, but I'm also going to leak all that information. Ooh, that's going to be bad. That's going to be a hit to you guys, isn't it? I hope people still trust you after they realize that you guys were not at all a secure organization. Or you pay us and we tell no one. This is a chronically underreported situation because nobody wants to say when it happened to them. I think that businesses, when you look at business scams, I have far fewer stories from businesses than I do from consumers, because businesses, they're terrified of anybody finding out. But it's happened to a lot of really, really big local organizations you'd recognize, but none of them want their names used. None of them want to talk about it. They want to recover from it. They want to put their heads down. They want to move on. But the threat is real. And when it happens, these scammers know all the psychology to lean on you to say, hey, pay, or, and the or is really awful. Data breach is kind of the second piece of that puzzle, right? Sometimes they want to lock up your machines right away. Sometimes they don't, because when your machine is locked up, it's immediately evident there's a problem, right? Like when your machine is locked, you have to take steps right away. Data breach, if I'm a scammer and I can get into your system, buddy, why would I tell you that? I'm just going to hang out. I'm going to watch your emails and I'm going to look at your org chart. I'm going to figure out where I can escalate privileges maybe. And then I'm going to just help myself to all of your information, all of your customer information, all of your personal information, all of your anything. We had a law firm in Wilmington. I'm sorry. It was a pair of doctors in Wilmington, and they were going to buy a building. Right? They were super excited. They were working with a law firm. They got a text message and an email from the law firm the day of the closing, the very morning. And it, man, looked exactly like the law firm's letterhead and logo. The text was conversational. Hey, Bill and Dan, I'm so sorry. And it was like, hey, we're so sorry. We have to change the wire transfer instructions. There's been a change. I'm in a meeting right now. I'll explain it later, but please make sure you send the money to this new wire transfer address. Please do it quickly or the whole deal is going to fall apart. Oh, man. The doctors were fighting mad. So they call it the law firm. They're like, oh, do you mean changing the instruction on the day of this? Blah, 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 blah. The law firm's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. We didn't send you that message. What are you talking about? Well, so they do the digital forensics and investigation. What they find out is scammers had breached the doctor's email system 3.5 months earlier. And they had just been, the scammers had just been sitting there. They call it dwell time. It's the idea that scammers are just dwelling in your system. Like nobody knows they're there, but they're looking at whatever they want. They were reading the emails. They were seeing the correspondence. And guess what they saw? They saw that there was a pretty big wire transfer going out for the down payment for the building. So they just waited. They waited, and then they played their card right on the best time that they thought to get the money. Now, in this case, they didn't actually get any money because the doctors had already sent the payment the night before. But the point is, that's what's going on. And I've seen it in real estate. I mean, there's a number of realtors I've talked to where their end users that are buying a house have gotten themselves scammed. They're hacked or compromised email, and they've wire transferred away the down payment for their house. And that's not the realtor's fault, right? The realtor can't make them whole on that money. But you know what that usually means? No house, because there's no safety net. And this is the thing. I try to explain this to everybody I can. I do a lot of work in schools, and I think kids especially need to hear this as well. When you lose money to fraud and scam, you lose money to fraud and scam. It's not the bank's problem. The banks can't afford that problem. I work with a lot of banks through the DABS group in Delaware, the Delaware-specific Bank Security. They are working their butts off to try to curtail this problem and protect people, but they can't stop you from withdrawing your money, right? That's not their money. That's not what they can do. There are so many barriers between where banks are expected to help and what banks are actually able to do to help. That people need to recognize they need to be on their own recognizance about this. But for data breach, the good news is that it's usually starts the same way that ransomware does, right? web applications, email, phishing. And so again, the end result is different. But again, we're going to talk later on about some of the things you can do to protect yourselves against all of these, right? Umbrella stuff that you can do, but understand that this is going on. When you look at data breach, I feel like every couple of days we're hearing about a new organization that's having this going on. It's everybody. And it usually starts with something like this. 8.7 million in Delaware for last year. That's the figure from what was lost, according to IC3, the FBI's reporting system, due just to what's called business email compromise. And what that means is that scammers impersonate or, have steal access to an email address from somebody that you work for, right? They get the boss's email, or they represent that they're the boss, and they send a message requesting a payment be sent. And that payment gets sent. Because if my boss tells me to do something, guess what? I do it, right? Most people, especially in the financial world, if you're the controller of an organization, and this is the thing, I talked to a business recently. It was a roofing company, a real big one. They did a business email compromise. They didn't have the owners, they didn't hack his email, but they sent an email that looked like it. It was like one character off. And they sent the email when he was out of the office. He was at a big trade convention winning an award. How did the scammers know that the owner of the business was at a big trade convention winning an award? Because it was all over his LinkedIn account. I'm flying to Florida to win this big award. So, I mean, look, we tell our kids don't overshare on social media, but it's just as valuable insight for businesses and business owners as well. But this is happening, and it's happening in Delaware. And in this case, they waited till the boss was out of the office. They sent an email that looked just like this, similar. It said, hey, we've got to pay this new supplier. I'm out of the office winning this big award down in Florida. You know that. Sorry you couldn't come down here with us, by the way. But you're the CFO. You need to make sure this money gets sent. Can you go ahead and contact them to set up a wire transfer? Or, this all sorts of bad things happen. But it's just that easy, right? If you get an email and you don't scrutinize it, if you get an email that looks like it's from somebody that can tell you how to do these things, Middletown Chamber, this happened to them when Roxanne was still there. They had a new hire. The new hire got an email from the president of the board, and it was like, hey, we need you to go out and buy some gift cards. Hey, welcome aboard, by the way. So
that one went on for a long time.
I mean, it's still
we
going
get
on.
those all the time.
But a new hire might not know that. And at the time, I think it was just before the pandemic. That new hire had to walk right past Roxanne's office and be like, hey, Roxanne, I'm going to get those gift cards Bill asked for. And Roxanne's like, what are you talking about? Now, fast forward into a world of remote work. Fast forward into a new hire that's got a remote job. And what happens there? You don't have that conversation. And people are losing money, especially in organizations that might actually need gift cards for something. But again, younger employees, newer employees, they don't understand the processes yet. People think they know what to look out for. They're like, well, you look for bad grammar, you look for, spelling mistakes. No, you don't. Not anymore. Man, the scammers all have ChatGPT. Actually, they have Fraud GPT, which I don't have a screenshot for because it's not important. It's a thing. ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude, they all have some guardrails baked in to make sure that you can't actually use it to produce phishing emails or scams. But you can get around that any number of ways, right? And if you don't think the scammers are using AI to improve their game, ooh, doggy, let me tell you, they are. In fact, it's a fantastic tool for them, just like it is for a lot of real businesses. It's because scammers are their big business. It's a bigger industry than the global illegal drug trade, and they're making money hand over fist. So why not use the same tools? Why not use the same strategies? When you look at what AI can do, even for your own organizations, for me, the lens that I see the world through is deeply, deeply jaded. I'm sorry to say, but it's because I see so many situations where scammers are inventive, clever people. They are reading every book on sales psychology because that's all it really is. It's just sales to them. But they are absolutely using tools like ChatGPT. Now, does that mean that there's not still going to be like broken grammar or whatever? Yes. Look, that's the JV squad of scammers, right? They're still out there. They're still shotgunning out there all sorts of information. But some of those things still work. I was on a recent vacation, and I was down at Disney, and I was sitting next to some folks on the bus on the way back from a park, and there's a couple of kids. I mean, not kids, like they're younger consumers. Nobody likes to be called a kid, but they're out there. They're high schoolish age, maybe early college, and they're sitting there, and the one guy's like, "Hey, look at this! I just got a random text saying, hey, are you free this weekend to do barbecue and beers?" And people are like, "Who is that?" And he's like, "I don't know. I think I'm going to text them back." We're like, "Yeah, let's do barbecue and beers." Like, "Oh my God, that'd be so funny." And I was like, hold the phone. And I had to be that guy. And I was like, hold the phone. I'm sorry. Sorry to say, all you would be doing is validating your phone number, right? That's a scammer. And scammers are prospectors, right? They are lead generators. And the scammers that send those texts are just looking to see who's a live human being at the other end of that phone number. And if you text them back, yeah, I mean, you might get a laugh out of it, but what you're signing yourself up for is to be recipient of dozens more scams targeting your phone number. Nobody wants more robodials coming in at them. Nobody wants more scams telling them about their car warranty that they can upgrade, or, oh my God, you've got an Easy Pass bill and you need to pay it. But the more information they can get from you out of a text message conversation like that, the more they can personalize the information that's going to target you. I was at a conference last summer, and I saw an organization called Civ AI that put together a live demonstration before, a studio audience or whatever. The organization, the nonprofit that was trying to beat the drum about AI being a pretty big threat in the realm of scams. And what I saw it do is, in real time, again, before the audience and the crowd, it took a profile from somebody's LinkedIn, a volunteer from the audience, and in about 8 seconds flat, it scraped that person's LinkedIn profile, and the AI made a persona for them. It knew about how old they were based on, their work history. It knew what their core competencies were. It knew where they went to school. It looked at everything that ever liked or commented. It looked at anything that ever published, anything that LinkedIn had that was public. In about 8 seconds, it knew. And then the guy's like, okay, now I'm a scammer, right? Let's pretend I'm a scammer. I just did that for this person here. And he showed us a drop down. He's like, well, now what do I want to do? Do I want to have my large language module start a romance scam? Do I want to have, how about a political scam? What about just hate mail? And he could click go. And in this case, they did the political scam, and the large language module, the AI, started a conversation by email with that victim. And he did it. He played it out. The victim's response back and forth. The large language module was started out with something like, oh, hey, I saw this paper that you posted about this political topic. What you're saying, does that mean that this other thing is true as well? Started a conversation just like an interested real human being would be. But effort from the scammer, zero. I mean, they found the target, they clicked go. And this is the thing that's happening that's going to be affecting all of our businesses and even our families more. I don't know if you guys remember robodialers. Robodialers came on the scene around 2008 to 2014 was the real heyday when robodialers hit the ground running. I saw a report that robodialers took the number of like spam unsolicited calls across the United States and increased it by a factor of 5, basically overnight. And AI is going to do the same thing for the spam and the phishing emails, right? Because there's no barrier to entry, right? Like, you can use real native language to type in. For all GPT is eager to please, it's going to walk you through the steps to do it. And if you're worried about the technical parts of it, they got scam as a service. You've heard of software as a service, SaaS. God, the dark web is awful. You can go on there and license software to deploy ransomware. You get a percentage, the guy you license it from gets a percentage, and off you go. It's an insane infrastructure. And the things that are coming with AI they're going to be a bigger problem than I think people are prepared for. But not here to be doom and gloom. There are tools, there are things that we can talk about that are going to be effective to help us protect ourselves. But I've got a couple of other examples to show as I sort of move through here before I get to the most important part, which is what do we do? I've been on too many presentations where people are like, here's what's happening, it's awful. Here's what's happening, it's awful. Here's what's happening, it's awful. Have a nice day. I did the FBI Citizens Academy. Awesome program. But my God, these guys would talk about some of the things that were going on in the world. And I would left every night terrified. I go home. My wife would be like, how's the Citizens Academy? I'd be like, I don't want to talk about it. That is part of the puzzle. But if I can give people actual tools to give you a direction to go, that's way better. But First things first, I mentioned that it doesn't do a whole lot of good to show you the specific scams, but I still do it because these are happening. They're happening in real time and they are getting more sophisticated. So phishing emails that lead to ransomware or data breach, they usually start with something innocuous, right? Dropbox, hey, click on that, see what's up. This is a new one. It's a calendar request. Think about this. You're probably prepared, and your spam filter is too, to receive and block phishing emails. But what about your calendar? If you get a meeting request, there's not the same barrier. Your spam filter doesn't always block that. And here's one. It's a spam message, but it went directly to the victim's calendar. And the summary says, oh, you owe us some money. And you can pay the money now, or you can hop on and we can talk about it tomorrow, right? At the support phone number. It's like scheduling a scam call. And that's insane, right? Like that is an insidious way to make people think that it's legitimate. I think that, tech companies are going to be working to make sure that this doesn't go any farther and that they're going to start blocking these. But I mean, I get unsolicited texts and I get sometimes unsolicited meeting requests from people. And if you're a business, guess what? You want calls from people you don't know. Those are called clients, potential clients anyway. So businesses are especially at risk of things like this because they are looking for connections. Well, that was a cool dissolve. I forgot I did that one. That was fun. Look at me. I can't ignore insider threat. Okay. This is, I don't like, this is the fraud part of fraud and scam. Employees are a risk, right? And if your organization has data that could be monetized, if it has the potential to have disgruntled, like former employees, you need to make sure that you're taking steps to protect your organization, because there are people out there that in a moment of anger or just because they're not very nice people will do some unscrupulous things, especially because scammers are recruiting them, right? This is from Dirty Telegram, where they're straight up being like, look, buddy, we will pay you money to get access to your employer's VPN or Citrix network, right? We don't even want the data. We'll take care of all that stuff. We'll just pay you for access. Whew. Tell you what, you got an employee and they got a gambling problem. You've got somebody going through a life change, divorce, something, and they're like in a pinch and they see something like this. That's dangerous, right? Because all it takes is a weak moment. But it's happening, and it bears relating to businesses that scammers are absolutely targeting people in the organizations, because that's way easier than breaking your firewall. And if I don't have to social engineer you because I can just pay you, right? I'll just bribe you, straight up bribe you, then that's fantastic. Yes, Michael Perkins mentions in the chat that there was a story about a lady that tried to sell Coke's recipe to Pepsi, and Pepsi was like, nope. I remember that story. God, it's been years, but yes. So, and that's the good news, right? Like most businesses, most reputable businesses, they're not underhanded, right? Most businesses are doing the right thing. And even like people like to throw stones at banks too. Like every bank I've worked with, they are good people trying to help, but you can't control people's actions. All right, what do we got here? We've got, oh yeah, so sales phishing email. This happened a couple of years ago, but this is a little tricky, and I want to make sure that people understand exactly the risk that comes from this. This email, in fact, came to the owner of a local commercial real estate company. They had just joined the Building Owners Management Association, BOMA. So the organization had just joined it. The owner got this email that was like, hey, dear member, I looked at your website, saw that you're now part of the same organization that I'm part of. Look, we sell leads, right? Lead lists, right? We've got all sorts of information that might help a commercial real estate company. The owner of the business forwarded this to his marketing manager and was like, hey, can you check this out? And because it came from his boss, the marketing manager just contacted the business, and the business came back and it went to his spam folder. And he was like, hey, it went to my spam folder. And the guy's like, oh, I'm so sorry. Why don't we put you in touch with our local guy, the 302 number? Going to a spam folder is a pretty big red flag, but sometimes you'll overlook it if you think that somebody else has done the due diligence. And this guy thought because his boss had sent it to him that it was somehow validated. It was not. But when you've got delegation of duties, and when you've got things like a new vendor that you're going to assess, or a supplier that you might work with, understand that even the appearance of legitimacy that comes with you forwarding the email to one of your team or somebody else, that can accidentally look like an endorsement. Like, oh, these guys are okay. Check them out. Good, So understand that this led to a loss, right? This led to a loss, but not until the scammer with the 302 number had talked to the marketing manager 4 or 5 times over 2 weeks, negotiating what was going to be on the list and how much it was going to cost. Scammers put in the time, man. They put in the time. And just so we're clear, no accent from the guy with the 302 number, right? Like no red flags about the guy was local. He said he worked up and down the East Coast. He knew I-95 and some other regional landmarks. It made it clear that he was not operating out of, Cambodia or Eastern Europe or wherever else. These guys are putting in the time because they know that that's what makes them successful and effective. But be careful that you don't accidentally legitimize something by sharing it or forwarding it or looking to, get somebody else on your team to take action based off of it. UPS, this is a classic one. I think you guys have mostly seen stuff like this, but just be careful, right? Because they're getting more sophisticated, and a lot of us do order things, right? We order things for our businesses, we order things for ourselves, and these fake delivery scams, they keep doing them because they're successful. They keep making money. This is new. This is exciting. It's just in time for the holidays. Evite links, right? From Evite or Punchbowl that look super legitimate, right? BCC is a red flag. If you get something like this and there's undisclosed recipients, that's not usually what people do, but you never know. But the point is, if I'm a scammer and I get access to your work email and I see on your work email that you've got somebody's birthday on your calendar, maybe I send it out to all of your contacts and I say, hey, we're doing a brunch in honor of this guy's 5th anniversary or 10th anniversary or birthday or whatever. And then when you click on the Evite, they ask you to log in. And then they've just harvested your credentials for your email. And that's not always enough. But like I said earlier, every bit of information they can get makes them more effective. And especially now they've got AI, they're going to have a dossier on everybody. AI is going to remember all the information. It's going to pull it all together. And it's going to make them more effective at targeting us. Another classic one, fake invoices, right? I talked to another guy. There was a company. Give me a second. What was the service? Crap, I can't remember. This one was 2 years ago. Anyway, the point of the story is it was another one where, I remember what it was. It was a directory. So company gets a call. The call comes to the business owner, and the owner is like, who's this? And the guy's like, oh, we run this website. We do free business listings. We would like your company to have a free profile, no cost. But we want to, you guys are kind of like book of lists type stuff. Like you guys are big enough that you should be listed. Do you have a marketing person that I can talk to get your company information? Because you're the owner. I'm not, I'm going to waste your time with it. I just want to let you know, congratulations, you're going to be listed. So the owner's like, yeah, sure, I'll transfer you over to the marketing manager. Transfers a call to the marketing manager. Is like, hey, this guy's going to put us in their directory. Marketing manager's like, great. Gives them all the information. And then the scammers send a bill to the marketing manager. The marketing manager didn't realize it wasn't a paid listing. He just got the transfer from the boss, be like, hey, this guy's going to put us in the listing. If there's no communication, if there's no clarity around those things, this is how they're getting people. They also will send unsolicited random bills. They'd like to send stuff for like printer toner cartridges, but also for like online ads, right? Like if people do online ads and they get an invoice that looks like it's from a company that has a name kind of similar to Google, maybe people think it's a partner that they work with. Shipping. I don't know if any of you guys know people that do like side hustles as small shippers, sell stuff through eBay or Etsy or whatever. A lot of scams in that regard where people will go ahead and make a purchase and then they will go ahead and change the shipping information. And what they're doing is they've actually, and this is tricky, and sometimes it's the breach on the end user's part, but they are just routing the shipments to go to themselves, the scammer, so that the actual person that placed the order and paid for it never gets it. There was one, oh, this is a big one, Kent County too. An organization, a pretty large shipper, got contacted by a very reputable company, right? Very real business. And they said, we would like to start ordering X product from your manufacturing site. We'd like to set up a line of credit, pull our DMB information. They used the name of the actual person who was in the role at this supplier, this well-known supplier. They used the website. And so when they ran the DMB into the credit check, of course, everything was fine. But the people they were talking to didn't work at that company. So they set up the line of credit. They ordered all these products based on a line of credit for a company. They used a shipping address that could have been a red flag if they dig a little bit deeper, but they sent something like $4,000 worth of product to the scammers. And then they didn't get paid. And then they reached out to the business and they didn't get a contact from the person that was a scammer. They reached out to the real business. The real business is like, we don't have a line of credit with you. We don't order anything from you. What are you talking about? What do you do? Right? Like, what do you do? We had a business that was a roofing company. They did 20% down. They went ahead, they put the roof on, they finished it, they invoiced the rest of it. It was like another $6,000. The consumer's like, we already paid you guys. What are you talking about? Company's like, no, you didn't. We told you it was 20% down and the rest of it when the job was done. And the end user's like, no, you emailed me and said if we didn't pay you the full amount, that you were going to stop work. I remember telling you you were a jerk and I didn't like it, but you basically said you weren't going to do any more work. And I was like, the guy's like, I didn't say any of that. Who's at fault there? The victim, the end user, got scammed, but they pointed the finger at the business and said, you must have gotten hacked, because how else would they have known to send it from your email? And how else would they have known to blah, blah, blah? And the business is like, whoa, 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 like, we weren't hacked. You were hacked. They probably looked in your email and saw the other invoice and made nobody wins there. Nobody wins there. And so increasingly what I'm seeing businesses do on their contracts is make sure they spell out, we will not change billing terms without a face-to-face conversation, right? These are businesses that, sort of do work locally. It's got to be different for bigger global business. But the idea, though, is you've got to go back to like older school methods of validating information. Scams. How am I doing on time? Better start wrapping it up. Let's bring it on home here. Don't trust social media. How about that? That's an easy one. The number of scams that happen that start through ads on social media is extraordinary. And people think that the platforms validate them. They do not. They do not. Also, if you're vetting a vendor or subcontractor and they've got all kinds of social consensus that they huge followers and likes and comments, that all means nothing. You can buy as much of that as you want, right? Instagram, you can buy as many followers, as many views, as much engagement. I mean, it's all for sale, right? Again, this is from dirty Telegram, but it's all there. So you've got to be a lot more careful when you vet things, which, by the way, I hate people that are like, you've got to be more careful. I'm going to tell you specific steps in a minute. That's why I'm trying to bring it on home with these last few slides. But this is happening and people need to know about it. Oh, AI, love this. I do have a professional photo with a blurred background. Are any of these it? I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. AI is doing things with voice cloning, with videos. If you guys haven't had a look at Google's Veo 3 video generator, my mind is blown. With a simple native language prompt, you can create a short video of like whatever you want. It's going to open the doors to a lot more issues, a lot more problems. So, okay, so what can you do, right? Like, what can you do? Let me find my notes here about what can you do, because how are we doing so far? Just general thumbs up in the chats. Is this information that's like helpful to you? Is this information that you've heard 100 gazillion times in the past? You could do it in the chat if you want to. I'm just curious. That'll also buy me some time to find my notes over here.
I actually been scammed a few times.
I hate to hear that, but you're not alone. You're
Right.
not.
Well, Dina got a lot of email from supposedly me telling her to change my bank account, that I wanted to switch it, so that one's happened. She didn't do it because she knew better, She called me first. I had the bank account one, and they were
Awesome.
really good trying to move my money out. Luckily, I figured it out and they were doing it through my money movement.
Well, that's
Changed
it.
all my information. It was
I've had
crazy.
2 people come to me telling me that they've gotten a contact from a sheriff that they have a warrant out for their arrest, and
Mm,
if they don't pay a certain amount, then they're gonna have then the warrant it becomes a bench warrant, and they'll be come to their house to pick them up, basically.
I love. Thanks for
Wow.
sharing that. It's amazing, and it's funny. The different scams that are successful really is by demographic. I do a lot of outreach for senior centers, been like modern maturity, cheer centers, other organizations, like retirement communities. And when you look at the demographics of what scams work against which victims, it's amazingly different. The things as kids is not the preferred nomenclature. When I do student outreach, the things that I talk about are very different than the things when I talk about older consumers. But it is amazing how convincing these guys can be. Okay, cool. So I've got my notes and I want to go through this because this is the part where I feel like there should be some actionable steps that you can take for your business. And they're not hard, right? They're not hard. I'm not here to tell you about cybersecurity and, like I said, locking down your ports and switches, but there are things because that goes over everybody's head, right? Mine, right? I know just enough of it to be dangerous. But I want to tell you the things that you can do without needing to be a technical whiz, right? So do's, right? Updates, right? You guys hear this often, but like for example, right now, Windows 10 is about to be unsupported, right? So if your organization or people that you know are still using an older, outdated operating system, maybe that's not a good idea, right? So updates, most places you can turn on automatic updates, and that's just always a good idea. Okay, so backups. Backups are a volatile subject for a lot of businesses because they're like, I don't know how to do that. That seems like a lot of work. Just get an external hard drive, right? This is an area where you can, even if you do it once a month, right? Like, look, IT people are going to tell you to do it way more often than that. But I promise you, if on the first of every month, you've got, a 2 terabyte external hard drive and you plug it in and you move the files that are your critical files to it, and then you unplug it and you go put it on the shelf, I promise you that if you ever do have a situation where ransomware happens, you're going to be grateful. Even if you lost a month of data, you didn't lose all the data. So again, external hard drive, yes, there are cloud-based backup solutions. Look, there's some robust IT solutions out there too. But even if you do something as simple as just backing up your work device with the data and the client information, anything that you've got that are files that can be kept, do it, right? Multi-factor authentication, that's MFA, right? Multi-factor authentication is when you log in to something and they send you a text message and you're like, oh yeah, I'll put in the code. But I'm gonna tell you, those text messages are like the worst way to do multi-factor authentication. Consider this, and this, I never realized this until I started doing a lot more work in fraud and scam. Phone companies, like your telecom company, they were not designed for fraud and scam protection, right? AT&T and Xfinity and all them, like they were designed to like connect people so they could talk. That was their job. That was their business model. Their business model was not make sure we have a secure way to send SMS messages to validate your identity. No, man, that's not their job. So if you can do multi-factor authentication through an application, through like, Google or Microsoft have an app, or, we're talking about passwords in a minute, but a password manager, if you can do multi-factor authentication through a dedicated security app, that's way better. And again, like I said, Microsoft, Google, there's a variety of ways you can do it, but do something rather than nothing. And it's tough because some places don't have multi-factor authentication easily to turn on. Like for example, for my Amazon account, thinking about it right now, I never put in a 2-factor code. So do they not have MFA or do I just not turn it on? You got to think about it. You got to take stock of that stuff. One of the things I may have mentioned earlier, but I don't think I explicitly called out under the do's, do look at what information your business collects, right? Do just take a step back and be like, well, what do I have? If I am a business and I have a list of all of my customers from the last 10 years and all of their credit card numbers, do I need all those credit card numbers? A lot of them probably expired now anyway. If I have a list of employees and I've got past employees with all their W-2 information and socials and whatever, do I need all that old information? Right? You're going to want to talk to the people that, your legal counsel, your accountants, your whatever, but my goal is to get you to at least understand what you have. Whether you keep it or not, or what you do with it, that's a decision you'll make based on your industry, based on your different organizations. But if you don't even know what you have, you don't even know it's at risk. Okay, so make a plan. Make a plan. There's people out there that'll talk to you about a NIST framework and a compliance infrastructure. They're going to talk about like a cyber security, disaster recovery. But what I think businesses should do, yes, all that stuff is good, right? But what I really need you to think about doing is this. You go to log into your computer and you can't. Your stuff is gone. It's locked up. You get ransomware. Maybe it was you, maybe it was an employee. You don't know. You probably don't even have the phone number or the email for the person to call because that's in your computer, right? When you lose access to all of that, you don't even have a phone number. So make a plan starts with, look, I want the phone number for whoever does my IT, or I'd like to have an idea about a couple of companies that do like recovery. Maybe it's somebody like Geek Squad or somebody like Diamond Technology or My Sherpa, PCS. There's a lot of great companies to choose from. The time to evaluate them is not after a problem has happened, right? Just make a connection, meet them at a chamber event, talk to the ones that are around and say, hey, I'd like to have a plan. Does your company help if there's a disaster? And they'll be like, yes, we'll protect you from that disaster by this and this and that. And you might be like, whoa, I don't have a budget for that right now. But at least know who does it and have a phone number for them so that if this happens, you can go ahead and do. I love this cynicism from the chat. That's great. Also, if you were the victim of a fraud and scam, your plan should remind you to call your bank. Because if somebody gets access to your computer and locks you out, or if there's a reason and you look in your bank accounts and you're like, what's going on here? Or somebody's like, my direct deposit got changed, call your banks. I promise you, banks deal with this. They have great training, and whatever bank you work with, bank, credit union, etc., they will have resources to help you. But remember to call them, right? If you could look at it's just ransomware and it's just like, oh my God, I got to pay or they're going to lose all my data. You might not realize that in addition to encrypting your data, they also probably have access to your banking information. It might be taking that money right now. So make a plan includes get an IT company's phone number or have somebody, maybe on retainer, maybe just a friend, maybe just know who that person is. Call your bank. If it was due to impersonation, you might consider calling that organization and letting them know that they have been impersonated. You would value that if somebody called you, right, and said, hey, I just, got hacked because somebody told me they were the Smyrna School District and I got this email and it looked like it was from you. And I guess it's not, but like, damn, you'd probably appreciate somebody letting you know that, right? What can you do with that? Maybe you can put out an alert to people just to say, hey, be aware that there are people impersonating me. Maybe you just sort of file it away, but it's just a common courtesy if you got the bandwidth for it. If it's an impersonation case, let them know. And if you were the one that suffered a loss, ransomware, a breach, whatever, let your customers know. There's a law about it too. You got to let people know. You guys can check that out with the Attorney General's website about the sort of levels and how many victims and blah, blah, blah before you're required to disclose. But I'll be honest, like you should disclose even if it's below that threshold because your customers should know. And it makes you, people are like, no, it makes me look bad. Oh man, come on. What makes you look worse is when they find out and you didn't tell them, So ethics, right? Try to do the right thing there. And then report the scam, right? That's on your plan, report the scam to the authorities. Your plan, if you've got like a backup, your plan might involve like somebody that can help you put those backups back in place. Maybe you don't trust yourself to do it. And if your computer is compromised, don't plug your backups into the same machine, right? That's a pretty good tip as well. But understanding the plan, I'm not talking about anything complicated, right? If you guys have like a cyber insurance policy, make sure you got the name and details for who to call for that. Staff training, right? So staff training, there's a couple of real easy things that everybody can do. And they basically, they revolve around a paradigm shift, right? I don't know if all of us are old enough to remember airports before 9/11. Some of us are, some of us aren't. But for those of you that aren't, you just walk right up to the gate, right? You just walk through the airport. There is no security. Nobody made you take your shoes or belt off. You just walked wherever you wanted to go. The philosophy at the time was that airport security could be trained to identify the problems. And so They didn't need all that robust whatever, but that was wrong. That was not true. And in our society, I feel like people believe that somebody like me can teach you to identify the problems. I can't. I can show you what's happening right now. But what I think all of us need to do is consider putting the same robust checks and balances in place for everybody. That's what airport security turns into. Airport security realized, hey, there's no way any security people can be well enough trained to identify the particular problem. So we'll put everybody through the same screening, even though most of them are legitimate. So when you have a new vendor, when you have payments, double check over one of them, right? If you're going to go ahead and set somebody up to make any payment, triple check it, even if that means making a phone call to the person every single time, you know? And people were like, yeah, but like if I've worked with them for 10 years, like, don't care. Airport security means everybody goes through airport security every time, right? Because that's the only way to be sure. It's the only way to protect your organization. And if you haven't codified your payment procedures, this goes under that staff training as well, right? Because businesses make payments. Businesses receive payments. They do overpayment scams a lot too. What'll happen, there was a law firm, they do qualifications like incorporation stuff. And they had a client overseas that went ahead and negotiated back and forth and ended up sending him a check for $40,000 to put him on retainer to do a multi-state qualification for their business to do business all over the US. And the law firm's like, great, got the check, we've got the money, blah, blah, blah. But then a day later, the business was like, oh, you know what? We're going to change the scope of service. We're not going to qualify into half the states we talked about. So instead of 40,000, just 20,000 should be enough. Could you just go ahead and wire transfer us that $20,000 back? I've seen it happen in service industries where they'll send people out to give a quote, an estimate on a painting job. And they'll be like, well, I'm not at the house. I'm in the hospital right now, but I want to get the paint job done before I get home. The thing is, I'm having somebody show up to fix the front porch too. And I only have one check left. So if I send you a check and I overpay you, would you cash that and give some of that money to the porch guy when he shows up? And I'll pay you more than your original quote because I appreciate what you're doing. Those things are happening. And so if you don't have a codified plan for like making payments out and for receiving payments in, it's a more challenging situation for you to be protected from a lot of these scams that are they're just trying to find holes in your accounts payable and your accounts receivable. Training staff, here's an easy one. How about don't ever pay by cryptocurrency? Don't ever pay by gift card. Don't even really ever pay by wire transfer. Wire transfers happen every once in a while, but they're so rare that you really need to like triple, quadruple check that one because they're really hard to stop. Not impossible. The FBI is getting really good at it, actually. But really good at it is still for big sums of money. It's not always going to be there when you lost 10 or 12,000. It's there when you lose 120 or 150,000. But the point is, if you never send the wire transfer without kicking the tires, you're in way better shape. And then, like I said, crypto, gift cards, there are zero legitimate organizations that will require payments that way. Researching unknown companies asking to do business. I would go a step farther. You can even research clients individually. If you do like home services, or if you're going out to work on somebody's house as a contractor, you can look at like parcel records to make sure the person actually lives there. If you're going to work with a business that wants to be a vendor or a subcontractor, you can research them, right? You can just Google the name of the business and the word scam, see what pops up. Reddit is great. Better Business Bureau is great. There's a lot of great directories out there that can help you do more research than zero. And then understand how easy it is to forge information. Synthetic identities are super duper easy to make, right? It's just like getting a fake ID. It wasn't that hard in college, and it's not that hard for fake scam businesses these days. They can make themselves look and act like anybody. They can send you their licensing information, fake. They can send you their information about whatever, financials, etc. They can send you all sorts of fake stuff. Just understand how easy it is to forge those information and be a little bit more skeptical when you're evaluating a business. And then the last thing for training staff, actually, I've got it on here, to get your social accounts verified as its own bullet point. If your business has a Facebook or a LinkedIn or an X account, a lot of those platforms offer the ability to verify your account. Sometimes it's paid, sometimes it's not, but consider doing it. Because I've seen scams that start when those platforms get hacked or when somebody impersonates them on those platforms. The last bullet point for the do's is a question mark, cyber audit. again, I'm talking about cyber awareness. These are things that are not super technical, but you should make sure your ports and switches are locked down as well, right? You should maybe consider if your organization has any cybersecurity chinks in the armor, and there are organizations you can pay to do that kind of cyber audit. So those are the do's. Let me wrap up the don'ts, and then there should be a couple minutes for Q&A. So don't trust caller ID, right? That I think most people get that now, but caller ID works a lot like the return address field on an envelope. If you're old enough to have ever mailed an envelope, you can write whatever you want in the return address envelope field. You can write the envelope came from Santa Claus at the North Pole. The post office only cares about that if there's a problem, right? So as long as the main address is fine, it just goes there. And you get a letter like, wow, I guess Santa Claus, the North Pole sent this. Well, your caller ID works the same way. I, the person calling you, tell your telecom company what number to show that I'm calling from. And again, spoofed phone numbers is business, right? That's a valid business model for a lot of companies to make their employees look local. So telecom companies sell that service. So don't trust it. Understand how easy it is to fake. Don't pay unverified invoices, right? We talked about it with like all the staff training about having a codified process for how you double check vendors, how you verify payments, the triple checking airport security stuff. So don't pay on unverified stuff. And like I said earlier, don't pay with crypto wire gift cards. Grants are a big one. A lot of organizations, especially entrepreneurs, are looking for early stage capital, right? They're looking for startup money. There's a lot of scams in the world of businesses where people are like, we have $50,000 of startup money. You just need to pay a $500 processing fee. Just go ahead and pay that $500 and we'll get you 50,000, right? Like it's a classic advance fee scam. Anybody that says you need to pay money to get money, nah, that's not real. And then be careful of the big names, right? Scammers love to imposter everybody. So they're going to tell you that they're Amazon. You know, you saw with the DMV text that everybody got. They're going to tell you that they, Dropbox, or that they're Google, or that they're wherever. Just understand that scammers know that most people, if they shotgun it out there to enough of them, a large percentage of people have a Google account or a Microsoft account or etc. This is what it looks like. I mentioned it's big business. This is a screenshot from a CCTV inside of a scam call center that was shut down a couple of years ago. I've seen more recent ones. Maybe we should update it. But what I want to show you is the infrastructure, so the people. I mean, they got motivational quotes on the wall. They got rows of computers. Somebody's paying to lease that building. It's big business. The scam call center, man. This is run just like it could be Bank of America, except it's not. So there's my information. I know this will be recorded and Cindy can send it out, but I'd love to field any questions. If anybody has any questions for the information that we've gone through here today. We got kind of a small group, so you can just unmute yourselves and toss them out there. I'm going to stop sharing the screen, assuming that everybody's taken a screenshot of my email or they can get it from Cindy later. So, and stop. And everybody's faces are way bigger now. That's great. Any questions?
Yeah, you recommended.
Great job as always, Jon Bell.
Oh, thank you. I heard somebody saying something.
There's 2 pages on the form. On the back is like a.
Can you hear me, John?
I can hear you, Jay, but it sounds like somebody else is talking.
Oh, in the background there.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, good. I just want to make sure. So yes, thank you, Jay. I appreciate that.
Nope. So for everybody else, John, we've had at Smyrna High School talking with our financial literacy classes, our student body. So he's done a great job. He's also done a lot of work with the University of Delaware. So highly recommended and very educational. So thank you again, John, for all you do.
Thank you, Jay. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Questions about fraud and scam stuff or things for your businesses that I either didn't talk about or that I could clarify for anybody? Man, that good a job. Look at me, man. Oh, that was recorded. Damn. Anyway, the point is, I really value that you guys showed up today. I really value that you care about this. And thank you so much to the Central Delaware Chamber. What a great partner. What a great organization.
Yeah.
And the fact that they care to put on programs like this to educate the community is awesome. So
Thank you, John. You did a wonderful job.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Again, it's my pleasure. If you have any other questions, you can reach out to me by email. Cindy's got my information if you didn't grab the screenshot. Apparently, me embarrassing myself a minute ago is recorded now, so you can also get it from the recording. But if you have any other questions, let me know. But otherwise, I'll get you back to your day. It's about 10 o'clock, so thank you, everyone, for tuning in today. And be safe out there.
Yep, and it will be on our website under coffee coaching. It should be up there by tomorrow. We record all our coffee coachings and you're welcome to come check them out. Thank you all for coming.
All right. Bye, everybody.